I think we'll get started.
Oh, okay.
It's somehow kind of fitting that you guys need to walk through your goose poop to get the meeting. Let's hope it's not a step down. So I'm here today just to kind of give you an introduction to the Welcoming and Diversity Task Force. Now, as my co-chair, Linda Billman says, I don't know what I don't know. And I think we're in that same situation. We're kind of feeling our way through because we don't know exactly what you all believe. We have a disparity of people that are on our commission, wouldn't you say? We have a lot of different people from people who are working, people with young families, people who are left-wing, people right-wing, people who are no-wing. The geese, there are two wings. So, anyway. Let me introduce our task force members who are here today. We've got Bonnie Beth Mitchell, Joanne Pratt, Carol Craven, David Connolly, and Pastor Joel is also kind of overseeing us.
Advising.
Not really a member, yes, I know. Two of our people, Jeff Dubois and Pete Lupiva, called in sick today, so they won't be here. Linda Billman's busy with taxes, and maybe your taxes, I don't know. And that's it. We've met since January the 30th. We have had 8 meetings. This will be our 9th today at 12:30 if we do meet. I don't know, since we're down a couple of people. 3 people anyway, we may not. We usually meet at 12:30 on Sundays at Joel's office. We have been guided by a welcoming toolkit, 3.0, building an inclusive church. Help your faith community specifically welcome people of all sexual orientations, gender identities, and gender expressions. I'll pass this around so you can take a look at it. I'm sorry, I don't only have one copy.
I have one if they want.
You got one with 67 pages, so you're going to go read it.
Oh, it's nicely noted.
It is very nicely done. That's one reason why we did this, because it was such a nice, colorful textbook. Our task force will also include people who will also deal with people of color and from creeds and cultures different from ours, so to speak, at CPC. Near the front of the toolkit is a list of welcoming church programs, including More Light Presbyterians based in Minnetonka, Minnesota. Here's what they say in their description of who they are. More Light engages over 210 congregations and thousands of individuals, enabling Presbyterians to lead LGBTQIA+ service and advocacy in communities nationwide. More Light's mission has always been to empower and equip individuals and congregations to live into their welcome for LGBTQIA+ people. As we moved into a new day in the denomination, MLP's work is about pointing toward a particular way of operating in Christian communities with God's abundance at the center of all we do and who we are. Presbyterians are not alone in this, though. We've got, we also have United Church of Canada, the Baptists. We have Brethren Mennonite Council for LGBTQ interests, which is really amazing. I've got a friend who's Mennonite, and he'd be like the last person I would expect to.
Well, it sounds like it might be a part.
Oh, it is. I think it's just factions within churches. But nonetheless, even then. The Disciples of Christ, the Episcopal Church, the Open and Affirming Coalition, the United Church of Christ, and Reconciling Ministries Network of the United States. United Methodist Church, excuse me. Reconciling Works is also the Evangelical Lutheran Church in America, and Room for All of the Reformed Church in America, and the Welcoming Communities Network. We've invited Brian Ellison, who's Executive Director of the Covenant Network of Presbyterians since 2012. He's going to come in and speak. He's going to hold workshops, I don't know, what do we say on Saturday, April 30th? Yeah, was that fair?
Yes.
Okay, so we have workshops, and then he's going to preach on Sunday, May 1st. I won't be there. Anyway, he'll preach on May 1st during the service the next day. The Covenant Network works for a fully inclusive church, hoping to find ways to live out the graciously hospitable gospel by living together with all our fellow members in PCUSA. Local affiliates of the network include Broad Street Presbyterian and First Presbyterian Church down on 7th Street. Okay, that's a little bit of my preamble. Let me say right up front that the task force is not coming into this with any kind of preconceived notion. We don't have, like I said, we don't come into this saying, well, we want to do this, we want to do that. We don't know for sure what we want to do. The task, or the toolkit will guide us, but also you will guide us, the church will guide us. Next week I'll be doing a minute for mission on this same topic. And there's wild rumors that have been flying around the congregation, I know. First of all, there are no aliens on our group. That was supposed to be a joke.
I know, we were all, it was a winsome.
There was one once.
Maybe one, I'm not so certain. I think people might be, I'm not positive.
There you go.
I'm sorry?
He's not here to defend himself.
That's exactly why I said that. We're not exactly how receptive the church is. Quite frankly, they might not be in favor of this. The majority might not want to be welcoming to gays, lesbians, people of color. We don't know. So we're going to look into that. We're going to try to find out. One way that we're trying to find out is we came up with a questionnaire according to what the toolkit led us to be doing. We came up with a 4-question questionnaire, and I can give you a rough idea what those questions are. We worked on that in the last couple of weeks. First of all, we also did some sort of a questionnaire in the toolkit based on what they think we as a church stand for, and over that we deduced that it would probably take a year for us to do this. Whatever it is that we do, it would probably take a year. Our 4 questions we came up with, don't tell anybody. What do you see as significant needs in our community at this time? What brought you to Covenant originally and keeps you here now? That's the number 1 right there. What brought you to Covenant and keeps you here now? 2, in anticipation of calling a new pastor, a committee of church members put together an updated mission statement, which I have right here. Part of it anyway. Updated mission statement after input from the congregation. Do you think Covenant is an open and welcoming church, and why or why not? Number 3 was this. Our mission study statement says that Covenant Presbyterian, quote, Covenant Presbyterian is an accepting, welcoming community sharing the glory of God's love with all. What specific ways can Covenant invite and welcome individuals who identify as LGBTQIA+ and people of color? That's a fair question. Ryan's talking about goose poop out there. I don't think we need any more on that. And our 4th question is, how would you feel about Covenant becoming involved in volunteering with LGBTQ and diversity organizations? Now, we don't know what those answers are going to be. We do know that we want to do this. We do not want to handpick a group that will give us the answer that somebody might want. So we've gone round and round and round. We're still talking about this, but we have some questions. Rather than having a sign-up sheet, which therefore would narrow it down to a subset of people who are interested in this subject, pro or con, we thought about just indiscriminately picking the 10th name on the member list and then moving down to the 20th and the 30th, whatever.
And do it by invitation? Or
We're going to do it one-on-one. So
you have to do,
it'll be one-on-one. So we'll invite somebody to come to the church, or we'll talk to them on the phone, or we'll do whatever, but it might be face-to-face.
Yeah.
Fair to say?
Yep.
Okay. We're still kind of open to how we're going to choose who exactly we're going to talk to and how many, because we don't know. We'll do the best we can. We also, the timing of this could be better. The co-chair has has not been able to be there for probably half the meetings because she's tied up with tax time. So, in order to attempt to prevent any bias, we'll likely choose members at random. Like I said, if we had a sign-up sheet, I'm afraid that we would just get people who are interested in that. And again, it might be either way, we don't know. We've worked on a 4-question questionnaire, if you will, though it's not finalized. We'll be asking non-leading questions, hoping to arrive at conclusions on how most covenant members feel about this. That's about it in terms of who we are, what our goals are, and what we're doing. This seems as good a time as any to open the floor to questions from you, if you have questions. Anything that you've heard that you want us to shoot out of the sky or agree with, I don't know.
Okay.
Yes?
Well, the participants in this random picking up participants to respond to this questionnaire, how was the task force formed? Were those people that were interested in the, or were they randomly picked?
No, we actually picked it with trying to have diversity in mind. We tried to get people who were of all political backgrounds. I don't know. Would you say, I don't think we agree necessarily on many things.
I know when they announced the task force, I told Rusty, Joel, that I was interested in being on it. Apparently I qualified.
And as an elder on session, I knew it was happening and I was interested, so I told Joel and got involved. So.
And this was, by the way, this was first run by session, unanimously approved. I think that, and quite frankly, even the 2 chairmen, I don't think, see eye to eye on many political things. Quite frankly, Linda and I aren't necessarily politically in the same place. So that's about it. The task force was, yeah, there was people who wanted to be in it that had to be, because otherwise we wouldn't have it.
commitment to not want to do it.
Yeah, sure. So, but I think we have a wide-ranging, like people always says, hey, I'm a Republican, what am I doing here? He laughs about it. But he's not alone, I don't think, either. So, and that's, the subject never comes up, so we don't talk about that. Yeah?
Do you think that maybe you could do a mixture of people who sign up because they're like interested along with the draftees?
We probably could, except how do you balance that though? How do you weigh that?
Well,
That'd be hard to do.
with the survey, what's your purpose on that? What's your result on it? What are you looking for?
What we're looking for is, we're looking for answers. We're looking for people to tell us what they think.
Are you sure that everybody has all the information that they need to make that call?
When we meet with,
Because the thing I think most people would agree on is we want new members. We want people to feel like they can come here. What they might not know and be uncertain about is what's expected of me in order for this to be true. Because what you're saying is you just want to see if people want to do something and they might not know how to do it. And so, what is involved exactly? Because most people, I think they consider themselves, not negative in any way, not sort of abrasive, I don't know. But,
no, I
so
think
this
right.
idea of, what's expected?
Well, let's face it, I think that many people, and probably everybody in this room, we're welcoming and we want people to come to church to a point.
But
You
I
know?
think
I
what
mean, let's be honest, we're human beings, it's the way we are. That's why we surround ourselves with people who look like us and talk like us and think like us. Maybe this might challenge us a little bit too. Yeah, Gene, go ahead.
Do you think that 10% of the membership is enough for people to ask? I mean, looking at
It's
this in
random.
terms of quantitative or qualitative, more empirical method of trying to determine this,
But
is 10%
there might be
enough?
better ways, I don't know. And again, we're open to that.
We'll start with that.
We'll start
And
with
see
that.
what we learn, and then maybe we pull additional
I
people
honestly
or,
do
you know.
not know
Yeah. we're finding our way.
Yeah,
I'm
well, I
waiting for now. I have
appreciate,
no idea what
appreciate
anybody's gonna
your
say.
saying
I
that,
really
and I'm,
don't.
yeah, I'm not questioning it, I'm just
No,
thinking
no.
in terms
No,
of,
it's good.
that's not, that's what, 20 or 30, well, I guess 20 or 30 people, I don't know if that's enough.
That's at the borderline between, if you were gonna do statistics, especially sophisticated statistics, that's like at the borderline of a sample that's representative of population. So,
10%.
no, not the percentage. If 10% will yield 20 to 30 people, that's at the borderline in terms of the procedures of statistics. That's at the borderline of like big enough to actually say something and think it represents the total
Not-
population.
Not to make that even more
Oh, Mr. Actuary.
math-nerdy, it would also have to be a truly random sample.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, how would you do it?
Well, the issue you're gonna have with this, the people that are gonna respond are gonna be biased probably. Some of them will be biased one way or whatever their opinion is. Either they'll be all for this or all against this.
You'll get skewing on people who are
So you
interested
will-
and willing to participate.
I would argue that many people's not enough. Now, all you can do is ask. You can't, we're not forcing anybody to respond.
Okay, I got a question,
So,
Mr. Actuary.
I think it's still a good idea to do the survey.
You should give the floor to your wife, trust me.
No, let them go.
No, seriously, I seriously have a question. Is there a way to make it more random, like a computer spin, rather than going through the directory every 10
Well, if
person?
you were gonna make it purely random, yes, you would draw names, you would take
Do
the
you know
membership
how to do
rolls and
that?
draw them out of a hat and hope that and send them a survey. But that's, I don't know if you wanna do that or not. Because if you're gonna send the survey out to the whole congregation, that's essentially the same thing. It might be more, the nerd in me would say, keep track of who you get responses from, maybe, I don't.
That's it, that's what I'm kind of coming
And
to.
you're building a bias in there to say to the extent you might have a preconceived notion, depending on how well you know that person, to think what direction they might go. See, I could do even more stuff on this, because then you can get my job. Because then you can make all kinds of statistical assumptions about what you think where you think they are prior to the survey. So, I mean, in this setting, there's no good way to do it. You
That makes me
still
feel
just
good.
go ahead,
You won't get a perfect analysis.
right, it's not.
Right, of course
perfect.
not.
This is not,
It's not perfect.
We're just trying to come up with a best shot at who we are. That's all we're trying to do.
Yes.
Mission Study dealt with that, and they had numerous, I don't know, I know we filled out questionnaires, but didn't they also have meetings and stuff too? I know we
Do
did.
that, yeah,
Previous
town
ones,
hall.
town hall,
That was a lot of input.
I think we've done that in the last year or two, so I hope we don't have to do that again. Yeah,
Did it just with getting the new plan?
Generations see things differently, as we all know. Would true sampling be if they pick a certain percent out of each 10-year generation?
Yeah, that's how you want to do it.
So, 1940s, you pick 5%. and
That would be
then
another
1950s,
way to make
5%.
sure. That would be another, if you were gonna pick people to ask up front, that's what you want to do.
So then you're separating that generational gap where you're not picking all.
You're trying to figure out, you would hope to get
a certain
a
percent
fair
out of
number at each.
Out of that birth year of 10, maybe out of that decade. Okay. Just
That's
an
a good
idea.
point.
There are ways, yeah.
I go back to this though, short of talking to every single person in the church and having everybody sitting down with them and spending a half an hour explaining everything first, because you have to be very clear in that. And there'll still be people who'll say, well, geez, you must have been biased in the way you described it even, which we could be.
But, I mean, what he's saying is, sort of true, I mean, absolutely true, because I think if we did a random, like every 10 names in the directory, I think our sample would be old. I mean, it would skew toward, an older generation.
No,
They might
question.
have similar ideas, but they would want to have input from a younger generation. I mean, I think most people really value the younger folks that are here. and don't just wanna be the only people here, Rusty.
That might also be the same thing though, that they want input from the younger people to a certain point. I'm just saying.
Well, there are, of our membership, 109 of them are over 80.
It's a lot.
Just, yeah.
Yeah, over
So-
80 lunch.
I thought I understood early on that you were picking every 10 people, or were thinking about picking every 10 people randomly to get the 4 questions.
No.
Am I understanding now that that everyone will get the 4 questions, and then the people that will be called, asked to participate one-on-one in some kind of an interview or?
We started with roughly probably 40 questions, and we narrowed it down to 4 because we thought that would be a workable number that wouldn't take up too long a time with anybody, and it would also be an accurate gauge of what we wanted to find out. We thought the suggestion was made that we have a general question for the very first one. That's why the very first one is what brought you to Covenant originally and keeps you here now? Just basically that doesn't really, it does have something to do with who we are, but it has, you're trying to get people, you want to get into it a little bit, make them comfortable, I guess, with the first question. But you're absolutely right. I mean, I don't know. But going on the same basis, then we have session members who represent us. I mean, why couldn't we sort of try to be representatives in a way on this topic? Yeah, Bonnie, I'm sorry, I didn't get to you.
I forgot. Oh, I was gonna say, are you gonna depend on people to tell the truth about their age when they're finding out the decade they live in?
Oh, for
heaven's
sake.
It's a good question.
We already know.
Yeah,
Does the organization in Minnesota or some other church that's gone through this offer any consulting?
I don't know, do you know that, Joel?
We've not worked with more like Presbyterians yet, but we are working with Brian Ellison, and so he's already, in the fact that he's coming and going to do a workshop on Saturday, April 30th, mark your calendars, 10 a.m. in the morning through 1:30 in the afternoon, lunch is included.
Freedom a la carte
You're
box
all
lunches,
welcome to come.
it'll be
And
yummy.
then he'll preach on Sunday.
Free.
He's already served consulting with us a bit, and will certainly, as much as we want him to, he will be available to us.
Yeah, Bob.
We are not the only suburban ghetto church that has gone through this.
Right.
We're not reinventing anything. If you
No,
find
you're right.
Anybody who has gone through this, trials, tribulations,
Right.
mass exodus, mass ingress.
Bob, the workbook that we're using was recommended by April Blaine, who is the pastor at Hilliard United Methodist Church that brought their church through this process. So that's where that came from. By the way, that packet, you can all find it. If you just Google Becoming a Welcoming Church, you'll find the PDF online. You can read the whole thing if you like. So it's available for everyone. So yeah, we're April is a very, very busy person. I respect her tremendously. But I'm certainly reaching out to her and utilizing her input as well as talking to Miracle last week at Broad Street. We're consulting.
So, do I understand then from talking to friends that are in other churches that are welcoming, or consider themselves welcoming inclusive churches, but that there is some kind of a designation for some churches within a denomination in which the whole congregation has decided to not only be welcoming and inclusive, but to have some sort of a certification. Is that like, when I looked through that booklet, there were within different denominations, then they had some sort of a title for what those churches had decided within the whole denomination. Is that what? Then is there? And there's a Presbyterian. So we would be in. So I'm just projecting where this could possibly be. Then when we say Covenant Presbyterian Church, there might be some designation under that.
We could join
Make us
either
different
Covenant
or
Network
similar to other
Presbyterians.
Presbyterian churches.
Yeah, we could join the Covenant Network. That would be one thing we could do. We could join more like Presbyterians. That's another thing we could do. And just to be, in terms of the way that we do church as Presbyterians, the session will make that decision. Right? So we want input from the congregation. That's what these listening sessions are going to be about. But in the end, it's always a votive session that makes the final call. not me, not, a congregational vote, but such whom you duly elect every year to represent you.
Right, exactly.
I'm sorry, I didn't cut you off, Joy.
No, that's fine. I'm going back to something Mona said about what you can do, to help. And one thing we have talked about is like, assisting at the UA Pride Parade. Maybe, going to local LGBT organizations, volunteering. I forget what else, but there's a lot out there that we, as a way to show the LGBT community, we really are welcoming being involved in something as church members, obviously, whoever we want to. Yeah.
Dublin Presbyterian has a float in the Pride Parade.
That's cool.
That is
We
very-
have
I don't
not,
think we're to
we
that
have not done
point yet.
floats.
Oh, yes, but that is a way.
But we are looking into doing UA Pride Festival. I know I'll go check out the Hilliard Pride stuff also. We're lucky they're on 2 different days. But that's a way to start getting our name out there, put out there just to test the waters.
Ideally, we would have some cool new t-shirts that say Covenant with our website and some attractive.
I love cool swag.
Yes.
I mean, getting the word out by talking, that's fine, but I mean, visually too, just sort of elevating the visibility of
Dave,
our church.
you got it, t-shirts, I think that was.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We just need a good design.
And there's probably gonna be people in our congregation who are gonna say, well, I'm not sure I wanna invite any LGBTQIA people in here. Well, they're already here. I mean, it's ridiculous. We had, I don't know whether I should say this, but a member of our staff came and spoke to us. Very, very, very moving. It was unbelievable. They spoke about how difficult it was, how they found out at their last job, they found out they'd been there for years, they were no longer welcome because they found out that they were living with somebody of the same sex. Awful. And we asked, as naive children do, I guess, we asked all kinds of questions about what can we do, how do we avoid this? The answers are difficult. It's not as if we can wave a magic wand on this committee and just suddenly we're going to be receptive, welcoming. We don't know for sure. We don't know what the steps are. It's a step into the dark.
I've kind of wondered if one of them is when we meet people we don't know, new people maybe, then we say what our pronoun is.
I'm sorry, what'd you say?
We indicate our pronouns, I don't know, present as,
You're she, her,
yeah, I'm,
I,
yeah,
You're
use,
she,
Her,
her.
hers.
I use she, her, or, yeah, it's like that, and, cause I know people who do this, and they do it easily. It's not like it's, difficult or anything, just when you introduce yourself, I use she. When I've done Zooms with the All Church, with PCUSA, they always suggested, go ahead and put your pronouns in. And that way, everyone can feel, comfortable and connected because everyone is doing it, isn't just one or two. And so I thought, some comfort around that. That's a new thing that we would ask people to do, but not everyone would need to do it. But like the people who vote for it, I think it would be good for the people who are comfortable. Maybe Brian Ellison's probably going to cover it. But just be thinking about that as, I met someone who was a new visitor last week and I didn't do it. I mean, I wasn't thinking.
It takes
But-
practice.
Probably so, yeah.
It sounds intrusive to me.
Could be, but not if it's really comfortable, Bonnie. I don't know.
I'm more comfortable doing it on a Zoom than verbally, because I've had people say it to me verbally, but I've been in lots of Zooms where the pronouns are. Yeah, I went ahead and added those to my work email signature, being in school counseling, I feel like kids and parents need to know that.
Yeah, I was just gonna say,
You
it's
see that
easier to put it
example?
on your signature line,
Yeah,
and, but that's a step.
yeah.
It is.
Right, yeah, and so I guess my point is, we're all in different places on that, but maybe that's something to consider.
And this may or may not fit in here, but we've had people who are on our task force who will say, well, I don't know what all those letters stand for. Well, then learn them. That's not asking much.
Yeah, and let me
Look
just
at
say,
what
a
it really
couple of weeks ago, we
Look at
had a
it.
great presenter, and it's still on our website, so that you can learn all about those letters.
Yeah.
I looked them up.
There are many opportunities.
Yes, and that's the way, you know, if you're,
Pressure.
rather than say, well, I don't know, LG, I don't know, I lose track.
Oh, that.
Learn them. Then find out what they are and learn them. I don't think that's asking much.
And there are more book studies coming too, to learn the letters.
I'd love to, just to hear from those of you who are not on the task force, tell those who are, what do we need to keep in mind that we don't know about? You know, how can we facilitate this process in a way that you think is gonna help? We certainly don't wanna harm this church in any way, shape, or form. So help us, you know, give us your wisdom.
Anybody? No wisdom out there?
I don't have wisdom, but more than just a sense, and, two things. One, you're running a risk.
I'm
That's
sorry,
not-
I didn't hear what you said.
Running a risk.
You're running a risk, and I'm not, you're right. You have a habit of writing on, this is an effort that needs to be done. But, you know, you're just going to risk losing some people, and you gotta set your mind. On the other hand, somehow, if there is a way to sidestep the politics as much as possible, you can't completely, but focus people on, hey, we're all children of God. That we are all, you know, and this is something even though I grew up in a fairly progressive family in a very conservative area, you know, I've learned over the years, for instance, you know, the idea that if you let gay people get married, it'll ruin marriage, you know, it'll be a free-for-all forever. Well, no. You know, whether Bob and Tim get married has nothing to do with what goes on, and you learn that experientially. So if you point to, you know, people who are not like you, who don't fit the 1950s norm, are children of God, and guess what? You know gays, lesbians, you know, transgender already. I mean, you might know someone, Bruce Jenner, Caitlyn Jenner. Who would have thought in the 1970s that then Bruce Jenner really thought inside that it should be that he was a she was a woman, not they, them, but, you know, because people saw a big strapping man, you know, what does he throw javelin, just, you know, just like ubermensch person who now looks half decent in a dress and, you know, has gone through a journey. So you've got to realize that you probably know people who, you know, fit the letters, and either they don't lead with it in mixed settings or are hiding to avoid the judgment of, you know, the heteronormative majority. So that's
Have you ever seen that picture? There's a picture of Howard Cosell on one side is Bruce Jenner and the other side is O.J. Simpson. It said, if Howard only knew where they were now. Anyway, no, that's a good point. Very good.
Yeah, the whole, I mean, starting with, you know, why you joined the church and, you know, sort of what your, I mean, because I like Covenant. We felt welcomed here, really welcomed, and we were new to Columbus. It was important to have that connection. And we were worshiping in Fellowship Hall because the sanctuary was under construction. So everybody would take chairs out and put them back, like, you know, we did with the first service every day. So, you know, there was that interaction, that possibility of, you know, talking to different people. And we got swept into different committee work and stuff immediately. That was also key. But So, yeah, I mean, this idea, and I feel like our pastoral staff for years has brought that message home that, you know, as a Christian, this is our call. So, to, you know, to be disciples, to welcome, to include, to serve. This is what we do as Christians. So, you know, when you're allowing people to lead with that, and then, you know, it is a cultural journey for a lot of people. I mean, no matter age, well, actually, under a certain age, it's not so bad, is what I've found out, but I only found that out, you know, not that long ago for my kids. So, and I'm still on it too, you know, so.
Yes,
Rusty, I missed the first 10 minutes, I apologize.
you didn't miss anything.
But
That was me talking.
we have some of these people in the church now. Has the task force talked to any of them?
Other than the member of staff, no, we've not. I always think it's difficult because,
It is.
I mean, hey, you're different than us. Tell us, come here and talk to us about it. You know, inform us because we're not very smart, so come here and talk to us. Now, that's probably the truth of what it is, but I don't know. At some point, it's like a sideshow to me. I know my mother used to love to take trips to go to the Amish country. I was like, why don't you leave them alone? You know, what?
They make their money by people.
I understand that. And they make a lot of money too. But I used to think, God, no, that just makes my skin crawl.
Kind of an objectification there.
Yeah.
Help to avoid that.
Yeah, show us what it was like in the 1800s.
Right, right.
Well,
Yes, go ahead, Jean.
what about, I know, I mean, I attended not all of the ones where we were looking at the book, the Bible says yes to same-sex marriage.
Yeah.
But that was only the people that self-selected to come here that really looked at that book or had discussions about it. Maybe we should have a stack of those books in a couple of places in the church so that other people can look at that, because I feel like this questionnaire that's going to come out is going to reach some people who haven't been a part of this, trying to grow this discussion. And they need, I feel like those people, you're gonna get, you could potentially get people who had been thought to pick up the book, actually kind of look through it. You're going to get a potentially different response from them at that point than you would if they just filled out a form and they were in.
Right.
Well, if they feel certain, I mean, if they feel like they seriously don't have enough information and want to commit to, you know, like reading the book, the discussions, it was like 6 or 7 that Joel did, you know,
Yeah, I
the
was
Sunday
here.
schools.
Yeah.
Right, yeah, but they're taped. So, and they're
Well,
on the
or that
website,
as an
if people
access.
wanted to
Well,
have, you know, like, as they read, you know.
But I think that the books even more so, because I looked at some of those tapes and they're the audio, it's a little hard and there are people, you know, but yes,
I
like
like that,
thought
that's
about that
easy,
too.
I'm gonna like do that today, order more copies
Just
from
have
Amazon.
some,
Where do you think people would see them?
On a welcome table, it sounds like
Yeah,
a good
welcome
place.
tables.
Coffee tables.
Okay, Joel's leaving, we can talk about him now. I told his brother one time, his brother was in here cleaning up after doing a forum, and I said, you know that Joel had to leave the session meeting because we were voting on something, so when he left, I said, when he comes back, let's tell him that we hired you. So anyway, Joel didn't think it was nearly as fun as I did it. I don't want to keep you late here. Does anybody else have anything else they'd like to say?
When you suggested that the very first, I don't know why this upsets me, but very first thing we ask people is what their pronoun is. I think that is not what we should do. We need to get to know people, feel comfortable with them, and have a conversation, and then ask, because it's the very first thing you ask, they're going to say, okay, this is a test.
And Bonnie, from my experience, is people who use the different pronoun, they very readily tell you up front.
But
If
what
they're
if other
using-
people are asked?
But don't have to volunteer or share the information.
I just don't
But-
think it's right to ask immediately.
I don't either.
There's so many people that are here at this church that I know well, that I talk to every Sunday, that I don't really know. I don't know what their story is. I'm sure they have in-depth stories, colorful stories that I just don't know. I was over getting a coffee like 3 weeks ago, and a guy said something, and I thought, I'm stunned. It was kind of sexist, it was kind of misogynistic. You just don't talk like that in this day. I thought, wow, really? Yeah, anyway. So, no, I agree with you. I don't think we want to put people on defensive. I don't want to put it on a personal level right away. But again, if you have thoughts on what we should be doing, let us know. We'll do a minute for mission next week, and in the meantime, pray for us. We need it, because this is an awful task. Not an awful task, but it's a daunting task.
Yeah,
Right?
they're important, yeah.
And we want to do it right. We don't want to screw this up because it's so serious. So,
So we want you to come back and update us in a couple months, okay?
sure.
Just let us know how it's going, let us know what we can do to help and
Okay.
support.
We will.
Yeah.
We will.
Or specific prayer concerns.
The only thing that bothers me is most of the people that I saw in the same-sex marriage seminars were pretty much the same people I'm looking at now.
Do you have anybody really young on the task force? Like someone who's in their 20s?
Well, relatively speaking.
No,
Probably our
No,
youngest.
I mean young.
Oh, yeah.
Because young people,
No, we don't.
I mean, I have a family member who is gay, who I think probably, most of you probably know. He did a lot on diversity in high school. He's spoken to school boards all around the
Really?
city. I mean, I've ushered with him at Pride banquets or HRC banquets, and we've gone to an annual commemorative service for transgender people who've been murdered that year. And that is quite a moving experience to have someone's name mentioned and their story told briefly by the light of candle.
No, you're right. Again, we tried to make it we tried to cover the gamut of everybody we could, politically, everybody that we could. We tried to get people, of color, we tried to get people, which there aren't any of, quite frankly, in the church. We tried to get people with different perspectives, different viewpoints. And I think we did to a certain extent. I'm sure that we could have done far better.
Is the confirmation class still meeting?
This is the last Sunday. I think it's the last Sunday,
An
but
opportunity.
it's true.
We do have a youth deacon, but I hate to just lay that on.
And they use pronouns.
And when we do the survey, we need to include youth in the youth group range,
Right.
like 6th grade and up. I don't know as though elementary is. I don't know.
It would have to look different.
Don't you think the parents might be, if you were looking at 6th grade and on, I think the parents might
Oh,
Right.
want to be aware that it's going out to potential
That's something we
maybe
can
one of your children.
Parents great at communicating with parents, I'm sure she would be delighted to handle that.
Well, anyway, I don't want to keep anybody from making it to church on time, so thank you. Oh, thanks. Thanks a lot.
Well, and our legislature is sort of swimming in a different direction too, than we want to go, so. I mean, that depends on your point of view.
But thank you so much.
Yeah,
Thank you.
thank you.
Thanks a lot.
Yeah.
Thanks, Rusty.
It's important to her.
Thanks,
Yeah. If there's anything in learning now somebody wants to do, let David and me know, because we'll be glad to get together some type of program to study a book or have a discussion or find a speaker.
Yeah.
You must really want to
I don't like studying, well, no, I don't need it, but just,
Got through it.
I'm studying. But, you know, the discussion. But, you know, I just thought, I just, my own discussions, well, what I was asking was, so, but it's recorded so they have access to. I purposely made someone else.
We are.
So,
You know, that's it. I was thinking,
They're
likely
like,
to be
very proud of making out the No, that's really cool. My wife's really from Amish country in Millersburg.
That's it. Well, so, yeah, that's what I mean.
So we
Do
were,
you think that it's very feels comfortable,
we were in,
you know,
Tampa Bay area.
so, but you're all right.
Dana's
So
mentioned.
you guys.
I was thinking tonight,
So we moved up there.
Well,
I found there's no experience with buying a house. And it was, you know, everything was going up. We paid $10 over 20 years old.
Right. I think that's the middle. That's the middle.
We are.
Might be every few weeks, but,
Yeah.
So counter on that, we're in Columbus. Hilliard County, Columbus County, we're just inside the. But our transfer. They go to Ridgewood.
and I thought, I don't want to go to where they're to use, you know, like, the sense that everyone does. And that's hard, so, I mean, we connect. I mean, it's easier to feel like you're connected to the group.
Well,
No, it's a difficult matter, and that's why, you know, it's a real trade.
I didn't know.
And I think everybody knows
because we're not members.
but I was really shocked.
Standing up and getting the joints all.
Yeah.
Takes
Takes a few steps. No, I had that too.
Yesterday, we went with the kids, we met the kids down in Ohio Valley and Chiefs.
Oh, yeah. Wow.
They're just down towards Cincinnati. And then Jocelyn and Ron had been there.
That's huge. Is it the one by
Oh,
Springfield?
yeah, there's just no way. It's for Cincinnati, almost to Cincinnati. It's like that, but it's much larger. It's like a couple buildings and it's all all we were in. But it might use the same situation, I believe. I haven't been to the
Functional ideology.
That's the one I.
No, I just know it's
I know the kind of people
Yeah.
I've been to that
who
one.
say racist
Yeah,
things,
so do they have
racist
food
things
where you
on
have
no
to
basis.
or something, or?
What we ended up with was
So most African Americans on the casual.
but David managed to buy a
Because
kayak, because they don't have kayaks for sale, they have a store. It really kind of sort of like.
Oh, you just get into
down
them
the
all.
store. So on the way, we were talking about on the way over, he was like, you know,
Racism.
I wanna let you know, and discuss
Or
with
maybe
you a
direct
bit.
relationship to
I
like.
have really
Or
looked
no,
into,
similar
I
relationship to
I
the
haven't seen
relief
it in
and racial
person.
justice
A
and that
similar
kind of
kind of kayak, one that, I mean, actually a particular one, it's like the first one.
And I don't know how that happened, because
Think
again,
about,
transplants.
But now he would pay real money for it,
Really
and it was
believe,
$1,100, no matter,
in racial.
that's all right.
You know, people are, people.
Well, you
But
better
it
probably
didn't
need a
have
paddle.
many,
No,
like
he
that.
does paddles,
I think you have 7 kids. It might be 6. We, and this is the hard shell kind but it's not 12 feet long like the others. It's like 10 feet long or something.
It was really
He
hard to
keeps
find out.
them. He arranges the wood side and we fit all the cars in. All the sides just
Like,
well.
she's right. The one car garage was crowded.
Well, he just, I mean, I have managed a little, sort of, with the house, but I'm not good with organization, and he has his own way of doing it. And so we have a long table there, I mean, we have a lot of stuff on shelves, I can see.
Available for consultation.
Yes, he is. He would be, I mean, he would be able to offer suggestions probably, you know, but anyway, so, I mean, we were discussing it a little bit, I don't know that he actually
This is a
has
couple months away, but
firm plan.
I'm not surprised.
Well,
Kayaks
you
are
can
in.
visualize, I mean, some people.
Why do our people just sell stuff?
You can actually hang them from the ceiling.
Yes,
too.
yes.
I mean, you can, but, I don't know that that's that way, because I think that would mean it would be not.
That is one thing I noticed.
Yeah.
And we church needs to get to
We do have, and we have drywall, you know, it's finished out there. Which I'm so happy he did that at the beginning. We just had that.
Oh,
to-
that is
and
something
we
good.
don't want to have it. Yeah, it would have been part of
Yeah,
it
they never have a wet
It's
there.
very good, light insulation.
Yeah.
Here.
So, and,
There are
I
lots
have
of
well, the
like
new insulated garage
Maybe
door.
mine goes too. Mine goes too. It's really nice.
Oh, no, that's okay. Hey, Poppy.
Oh, dear, I don't, well, yeah, okay.
Poppy's at home.
Yeah, that was good. I was glad that he was there because I didn't know what we were gonna do for that question.
I mean, I can't believe I got your own spot.
And I'll let you know if I start.
And you know what I wanted to do too? I was taking all.
And no matter how early I get up.
And I just wanted to hear your email in here to make sure I have the new one. What I remember is Jacob, and that's the one that's like my junk email. Yes, JK Pratt. 87, I can't, at Gmail. Where 83 was taken, so, guess I use 87. Sometimes I use 1964 for my, I get to work when I'm gonna be absent. Yeah, I've done that. I've done stuff like that. You know, 83 house meeting.